Alright, think we're good? Yeah? Sweet. Okay, even better. Alright, so, how's it going? I am here. What is new? Not a whole lot for me right now. Viciously cold, actually. I'm not a huge fan of that part of things. But, you know, we're doing our best. My heart goes out to the people who are not used to this kind of cold who are having to deal with it. Because, yeah, it's a huge adjustment if you don't deal with it regularly, and it can be really hard to navigate because you may not have the gear that you need to be safe and warm in this kind of weather. So, I am working on this map today. I want to get the gold detailing that I want to add to this map finished. This is going to be the Patreon map for this month. I decided to do it as part of a challenge that was going on in one of my mapping groups. I really love how it turned out. So my goal is to get it finished up today and get it uploaded for my Patreons. And then I'm going to finish the other map that I've been working on this month and upload it for them as well. I just don't know if I'll get through it today. So yeah, mostly just hanging out. It's been a really strange the weather has been, like I was saying, just absolutely terrible, so I'm kind of feeling the impact of not having any sunshine, and our coffee maker broke, which is something that I didn't think would be such a big deal, but it really is. So it's just been, things have been a little off. It hasn't been great. I'm hoping that everyone else's weeks are treating them better than mine have been. I just realized that I forgot to put the trunks for these trees in, so I'm doing that really quickly. I started a Discord. I know we were talking about that a little while ago. It's called Art Jam. So in the event that you are interested in checking that out, please feel free. I've posted a link to it on my Monocled Octopus Facebook page, or you're welcome to send me a message here and I can send you the link for that. I just realized that there's an inbox that goes along with YouTube for people to send me messages to, so I apologize. I know there's at least one person who has commented that I did not realize there was a message there, so I'll be addressing that, and hopefully I'll be more on the ball for tracking that in the future. I'm not really technologically adept. I'm sure that that has become plain as these streams have continued. That's not an excuse, though. I really want to make sure that everybody knows that they're important to me, and I'm very much willing to make the effort to be available and communicate, because that's a big deal. I've been thinking a lot about politics lately, just with the news cycle being what it is, and how that impacts real world building when you're writing a book or designing a game setting, and the kinds of, I guess the thing I've been thinking the most about is just what is a society's relationship with violence, like, and I'm talking anything from, like, you know, punching somebody in the shoulder when you see a punch buggy, which most of us wouldn't think of as terribly violent, to full-scale warfare, and then individual crimes like murder or assault. And just kind of realizing that that's one of the blocks for me in world building, because I live in a really safe society. I've been privileged to never really have been on the receiving end of violence of that kind. And I don't really know much about how you interact with those modes of being, and also how you interact with trying to control them. And so I'm having to do some thinking and some research about that to kind of get my head around it so that I can write it more effectively. One of my cultures... Hey, Myrna! Sorry, just looked up and saw that you were there. I hope things went well at the library. But like I was saying, one of my cultures is a pacifist society, and they've been pacifist basically since their founding. I think at some point previously they weren't, But I think that's so far back in their history that they've given up on it and are ashamed of it, I think, in terms of their cultural. And so I'm trying to think, like, what happens when you have a society predicated on non-physical violence, because there's certainly other forms of like verbal violence and stuff that happens within that society. And just how do you write it? How do you make it convincing? What are the logical follows of that kind of a proposition? So like I'm sure they have metalsmithing for tools, but I'm also equally sure that like their ability to make weapons is pretty low, because they might be able to adapt their toolsmithing stuff to making weapons. I'm sure that those things overlap pretty handily. But like what else wouldn't you have if this was a thing that you actively denied your population from having? So it's been an interesting mental exercise because it's really showing where I have my own blinders. So kind of been one of the projects on my plate lately, and trying to get back to writing more regularly. It's easy to fall away from, especially in the winter and when there's other things going on in terms of like commissions and stuff like that. The weather is just killing me, you guys. I'm really, really ready for something that's not minus 30 Celsius and something that has more sun in it, because that would be super awesome. I've been lighting candles out of self-defense in my studio because it just bumps the temperature in here just enough to actually be comfortable. Although things are good today. I think that housing finally realized that they needed to turn on the extra boiler. We have hot water heating in the shacks here, so when there's all three boilers going, things are nice and warm. When there's not, it kind of sucks a little. So that's a thing. But I'm okay with it, ultimately. We have a place to live. It's safe. It's clean. It's in really good repair. I don't have too many complaints. Especially because I have candles. So, you know, I can adjust my environment as needed. How come we're not focused here? Or at least it's showing is not focused on my computer. Do-do-do. Do-do-do. Myrna, can you let me know if that's pixelated or not, please? Because on my phone it's in focus, but on my computer screen it's not. This is part of the problem of like working and looking at my hands and then realizing it is in focus? Okay, great. Or I guess I need clarification on that. It's the bandwidth for broadcasting. Okay, perfect. I love that you know so much more about this than I do. Guys, if you're ever trying to get a creative project off the ground in a medium that you are unfamiliar with, always find someone who knows more than you. And then do whatever you need to do to convince them to mentor you until you get everything figured out. It's true. Your best chance of success is learning from people who know more than you. I'm kind of digging these two towers that are right here. I deliberately made them a bit like a gate. So this city that's back here is kind of framed by them, which I thought was a fun detail. Oh, it is pixelated. No, that's not what I want. I swear to God we had them in focus at one point. What if we move the camera? Make it a little bit closer, maybe? These are things I just don't know about, you guys. No, that's not helping at all. And now it's just making everybody seasick. Sad face. I think I'm like looking forward to getting a better camera, and that's something that I've been wanting to do. Oh, sad monkeys. Alright, well, we're gonna go with it because we don't have a choice. Onward. I wish that I had a more intrinsic understanding of the Wi-Fi and all of that jazz. I really, really do. I was listening to, you know what, I think it might have been a lecture by Neil Gaiman. If I can, I'll find find it and post it in the comments because it was just really wonderful to listen to. Where he was talking about how most people, when they say that they want to do a thing, what they really mean is they want to have done it. They don't want to go through the process of learning how to do it, and devoting all of the time and energy that it's going to take to go through that process. They just want that process to miraculously be concluded and for them to have the results of that. And I've been noticing since I heard him speak to that, that's really true for me sometimes, where I'm like, I really want to know more about this. But you know what? If I sat down and researched it for a couple of hours, I'm sure I could make some headway and I could figure out what it is that I'm talking about. But that it's so rare that I actually sit down and plug the time into that because it's not a priority for me. I would like it, but there's other things that I would like to do more. And I think once I started kind of reframing it to myself as, like this would be nice, but it's not a priority, then it kind of made me realize, A, I know what my priorities are, which is a really solid kind of feeling if you've never sat down and really thought about them. And B, okay, it acknowledges that I'm just not willing to put in the effort there. And then Myrna saves the day again. Woo! Thank you for that explanation. I appreciate it. Again, people, learn from your friends. They are geniuses. Such geniuses. I mean, there's a reason you're hanging out with them, right? So I'm going to upload this map to Patreon. I'm going to upload it in the black and white. I'm going to upload it with this gold detail. And I started coloring a version just to play with color schemes before I decided that I was landing on this gold version. So this is what I was playing with before. It's really shiny because it's pencil crayon. There we go, that's better. So I really actually kind of dig this multicolor spectrum-y goodness that's going on up there. The green's really pretty too, but it's just not as like Lisa Frank fun as what that section is. So I think I may actually do a print and color in the print to that effect and just see kind of how magical we can make it. I don't know if I'll be able to get that done today, or if I'm just going to upload a photo and be like, maybe run a small contest for my patrons or whatever to see if like they want to send me a colored version, and maybe we'll do an art piece giveaway or something like that. There's a few ideas in my head. I just need to work them out. I'm kind of feeling more like I want to start somehow doing physical things, like sending postcards or stickers or what have you. The problem for that is just like sheer capital cost, right? You got to come up with your thing. And I'm lucky because right now I have a really small group, so sending physical things wouldn't be hard, or at least it wouldn't be as hard as it could be when you're someone like Amanda Palmer who has hundreds of thousands of people. And I think that would be cool. It's part of the reason why I set up the Discord. Like, I really love the idea of community and that we all kind of know each other and are hanging out. So it would be nice to add that element into things, I think. I really like the addition of the gold trees. I reached the conclusion that pen nib size is kind of like trying to buy jeans. I was working on the dots for these trees. They're super tiny. There's 6 of them per each tree in the black ink. And I started out doing it with my 003 Copic. Because I was like, well, that's the finest nib I have, and I think that'll be the right size for this size of paper. Cool, let's do it. And it was giving me trouble. I think the nib needs replacing. So I moved over to my 0, 0, 1, 0, 0, 5, the next size up that I have, and just went a little bit lighter and got the same size dots and realized that my Muji, which I think is a 038, would basically give me the same thing, just that that one's not water fast, so if I were to go over it with anything it would smudge. So, you know, they're a good guide, but they may not necessarily make the calibration as perfectly as they could. And I mean, anybody who's ever been jean shopping knows the frustrations of that. I just don't think I'd had it kind of read home to me so closely as that particular exercise. I think one of the other things I like about using the gel pen is like for this area of trees over here, it kind of overlaps a river. And so it's hard to tell, I guess, in the camera, but when you look at it up close, there's just a little bit of layering that makes it look like the leaves are over the water, which I hadn't managed with the black ink because black on black doesn't read. So that was pretty cool. I like that effect. We've had an influx of people to our mapping group on Facebook lately that are like professional and semi-pro, and I really like it because the caliber is nice, but I feel like it might be changing the tone of the group a little bit because I think people who are new to it are being intimidated into not posting their things because there's like, oh, you know, there's all these people who are doing it so much better than I am. I can't possibly do anything. And I don't want that to change. Like, I really like our group. I think it's incredibly supportive and really creative. And I also feel like there's a couple people that are just trying to treat it as places to sell stuff. And, like, that's not the point of the group either. So, I'm not totally sure how to deal with it yet. I have to talk to my other admins and be like, hey, what do we want to do here? I'm just not a super huge fan of when people treat learning communities as markets, I guess, which is kind of ironic considering that I wanted to be a university professor for a long time. Although perhaps maybe not so ironic in that context now that I come to think about it. Yeah, it does depend on what else they contribute to the group. Right now, there's not a lot. Like, it just feels like they're dumping a message and then walking off. Like, one person this morning just dumped a link to their Facebook page. They didn't introduce it, they didn't say, like, this is why I think you guys might be interested in it. It was just this repost. And I was like, you know, I get it, but I'm kind of frustrated by it. Like, I think on some level, you kind of owe it to your other people to just do an introduction. Like, it seems like a common decency kind of thing to me. Yeah, yeah, totally. I agree with you completely, Myrna. You and I have kind of talked about that at times, though, about the whole being in the arena thing. Where did that come from again? I think it's just they know they have something in common with people, so they think, well, maybe if I'm doing it, they're gonna want it from me. I mean, a lot of the people that have expressed interest in my work are other cartographers. even authors I know who make their own maps have been like, hey, you know, I'm interested in perhaps you doing something for me because your style is different from mine, which is cool. I'm all for that exchange and sharing of skill. It's what we do. But, you know, yeah, okay. I figured it was either Brené Brown or Elizabeth Gilbert. Thank you for that. But just that idea of like, well, preaching to the choir kind of thing, but also like the people who are doing it also know what it's like. They know why it's important and how much work it was. So now my big dilemma is, do I gold the outline of these islands to create that thick border around the outside, or do I leave it? I think we're gonna try it. Let's do it. It's still my intention at some point this year to experiment with gold leaf and figure out more about how I can integrate that into my map making practice. I posted an article to the Monocled Octopus Facebook page today about fabric, like textile patterning in, I think it was India, and they had made up some maps that showed the regions in a popular fabric from that region, and they were just this beautiful amalgamation of color and texture and pattern, and I thought that was really fun. I think that that would be a really neat map to kind of play with and just see what it came out as. Oh yeah, I like how that works for the rivers. That's pretty great. Sweet. Yeah, that's looking okay. Thought I had turned off all my notifications, but apparently not. Sorry about that. There it goes again. We were talking a little bit about sketchbooks in the Wink creative community on Facebook today. Super awesome group of creative people there if you guys want to come check it out. Totally worth it. But someone had posted that they sometimes feel intimidated by the beautiful sketchbooks that they buy, and then they don't really know kind of how to start or what to do with it. And the pictures that they posted of their work were just incredible. So my initial reaction is like, how could you possibly be intimidated? Your work is amazing. And then I realized that people have said that to me a lot, and I still get intimidated. Sometimes I get outright paralyzed and just it becomes difficult to make the work, right? So the person asked if there was anything that we do to kind of get over that feeling of being stuck and that intimidation factor. And it's something that I've been thinking on since I read the comment, because it took me a long time to get over it, despite the fact that I've been drawing for pretty much my entire life. I think when I was younger, like even into my mid-teens, it was easier because I hadn't received a lot of negative criticism, so I didn't ever hide my art. It was like I carried a sketchbook everywhere. I drew on my jeans. I was that kid. But I went to a fine art program for a year, thinking that that was what I wanted to do for university. And really what I should have gone to an illustration program, because they are not the same thing. That was one of the hardest years on my creativity out of my entire life. What the program was teaching would have been absolutely amazing had my goal been to create fine art with the intention of becoming someone who sold through galleries. It's a very, very good program. Lots of people have gone through it and gone on to become successful in their fields and with gallery shows and representations and stuff like that. The reality is that's not my style of art. And I was too young to really know that at the time. I figured, art is art. I'll learn something and it'll be great. And then I can go on to doing what I want to do. And that year probably set me back. Oh, I don't know, 5 or 6 years creatively. It took me forever to get over the constant feeling of being assessed, because I mean all your work is in a program like that. To be more comfortable receiving criticism, because criticism was then just critique, right? Like it was just a suggestion or someone's reaction to your work. It wasn't a passing or failing grade. And I'm a little bit wonky when it comes to grades at the best of time. Like I'm very Hermione Granger when it comes to schoolwork. I like having good grades. I take them as personal value, which, is kind of messed up in a way, but I understand it because we kind of do that to our kids. These numbers are a reflection of your aptitude as a human being. Congratulations. So I know where all of that comes from for me, but it really, really messed with my head in terms of I just couldn't make art for a long time afterwards. And what ended up kind of fixing it for me was getting into mixed media work in my sketchbooks and realizing that my sketchbooks could be workbooks. They didn't need to be finished gallery books. I think sometimes we do ourselves a disservice when all we look at is someone's final work. It's part of the reason why I'm pretty raw about my stuff on Instagram. I don't use filters unless I'm just putting better light in there. I don't Photoshop. I don't really edit for anything. This is the desk. This is the studio space. This is the bread that I made, because you know what? It's not just art. Sometimes you gotta eat. I'm trying to be as real as I possibly can about the process, because I think anything else kind of mystifies it. And I don't think that helps us because it doesn't show the reality of what the creative process is like. It doesn't offer any kinds of solutions if someone is stuck and is looking for help. And I know that when I'm looking for help, it's way easier for me to try and like find the answer on my own because I'm less embarrassed than it is to just out and out ask for it. So the mixed media stuff was really important for me. In particular, the mixed media visual journaling styles of a duo called the Journal Fodder Junkies. They're pretty. Their style of stuff was something that I had been doing on and off in my sketchbooks in terms of like writing journal entries and kind of embellishing them for a long time, but I had never seen their method before, and it was really, really inspiring to me just how they tackled it. It was also really interesting to me because it was a pair of guys. And a lot of the scrapbooking, journaling, visual culture stuff that you see, or that I've seen anyway, if there are other ones, let me know because I'm always interested in other representations, tend to come from women. And so this was a point in time when I was really surrounded by things like Project Life, a lot of the scrapbooking, card making, and those are very like female coded and a particular kind of female, which is really family focused and not to put too fine a point on it, kind of materially driven, like really curated, very interested in a perfected representation of life. And it was all well and good that that was going on, and if that fills a need for someone else, then fantastic, but it wasn't accessible to me, either through things like cost, because Project Life, for example, is really expensive, or just through, I couldn't relate to it. Like, there was a lot that just, it wasn't working for me. And so stumbling on the Journal Fodder Junkies was really great because it was low barrier to entry. You needed a piece of paper and maybe a ballpoint pen, which kind of took me back to my roots because really that's what I started with. And you could just go from there. And so as I started kind of giving myself permission to let my sketchbook become a workbook, I started to realize like I didn't have to finish, I didn't have to be perfect. I wasn't being marked on it. It could be what I wanted it to be and not what anybody else needed it to be. And that was a really, really big deal for me. I like my sketchbooks a lot more now. I feel like they are far more organic. I feel like they're a lot more representative of what my day-to-day creativity looks like, as opposed to like, hey, here's the highlights, here's the ideas that only turned out well, which I think just doesn't help anybody in the long run, including myself. Because then I look back through a book and I go, see, I was doing so well with this, because I'd forgotten the context of when all of that came out of. But yeah, I think, no, don't be afraid to make a mess. I think that's important. And you'll realize later when you go through it again that it's not really a mess. Like, when I was working on the stuff, the maps of Runda and whatever for Scrive, she had an inn named the Salmon Spyglass. The design that I used for the inn sign was a design that I had whipped up 10 years ago, just in the corner of a book. I have no idea what even prompted it because it made no sense at all to me at the time. But I just drew this fish on a wizard hat and was like, here we go, it's awesome. And I have no idea what to do with it. So it just sat there. 10 years later, it was like, oh, this is perfect. I know exactly where it is. It's in this book. And boom, this is half this project taken care of already for this particular line item. And that was a great feeling. Looking through the book I've been working on for the last year, there's some stuff in there that's really great that I thought was terrible at the time. I was like, I don't know what I'm doing with this. Like, I'm just doing something to do something. And you let it lie fallow for a while and you go back to it and you see if there's something that's useful there. And if there is, you mine it. If there's not, you leave it, move on to the next thing. It's pretty great that way. But yeah, the more you do, the better you get. So even if it's terrible, you're still learning. That's going to make you better. Time in is really the only way to make it happen. I see Gary has joined us. Hello. It's been kind of quiet this morning. I've gone through stretches of rambling and stretches of just being quiet and coloring my lines. And that's okay. It can be a chill Thursday. We're good with that. think I'm just about done with this one, and then I'll move back to the one that we were working on last week. Naps are... We like naps. A labyrinth, hey Myrna? What are you drawing a labyrinth for? Is it for one of your classes? Alright. I think that is us with the Art Deco-ness. I dig it. I'm happy with it. Oh, I'm throwing my pen across my desk apparently. Good job, Klutz. So yeah, I think that looks alright. So I'll put that one over there. I'll just show Gary this one again really quick. So this was my demo of like just playing with stuff. I'm thinking that I may end up doing a version colored with this kind of awesome Lisa Frank rainbow goodness. Just because it's great. So we'll see. I like having the ability to print off different versions and kind of play with it with different color before I commit to anything. That is super useful. I am so delighted that I have a decent printer now. Yeah, I thought the gold was fun. Somebody in my mapping group suggested it, and they were like, you should do it in gold leaf, and I'm like, that would be sweet, but I don't have any. However, gold gel pen, that will work. Oh, from your comm magazine. Well, that's super cool. Maybe post the tutorial into the Winked group, Myrna, because that might be super fun. Alright, we're looking at more tiny, tiny trees. All the tiny trees. What are you dropping your jaw about? Oh, yeah, this is the map that I've been working on this month for Patreon. It's not going to be done on time because I've spent a lot more time on commissions this month than this, so we're going to do the Art Deco map instead. But yeah, this one will be posted to them just as soon as it's finished. Thank you. I took it with me and worked on it at the in-person art jam that I went to in Edmonton. Was that last weekend already? No, the weekend before. Today is. Wait. Oh man. I know today is Thursday. I mean, I see it on the calendar. I'm live streaming, so today is definitely Thursday. But it feels like Monday. I have had zero sense of time this week. Like, absolutely none. It has been so bad. All week I have thought that it's a different day or a different time. I've missed appointments. It's just been awful. I will be so much happier when we are back to like a reliable day of sunshine. My brain is not doing well with this current weather situation. Coffee situation is substandard. We're using the French press for now because that's what we have. We're not financially in a position to replace our coffee maker right now. So we're making do. I've had 1 cup today, which is fine. It's enough. I'm probably going to go make more after the stream is done. I can sit there and drink it while I'm hanging out on the Discord. I did some design work for one of the commission maps that I'm working on right now for cities and buildings and stuff. So that was really fun. I'm looking forward to doing a bit more of that. I'm not sure why these hills look like porcupines, but I'm kind of into it. I follow Chris Riddell on Instagram. He is a really, really incredible illustrator. I've loved his work for a long, long time. And he actually posted some sketches that he did from a new drawing class, which was just kind of a revelation for me because he normally does like very innocent illustration, in my opinion. Like, it's usually stuff that would be not out of place in a kid's book at all. And so to see his style done with nudes was just like, oh, neat. I mean, he's got such a gift for line and he can evoke so much with so little. It's just absolutely fantastic. So that was like one of the things that I saw this morning. It was like, wow, that's really cool. And I think that's part of the interesting thing about following an artist for a long time over their careers. You really start to see where things have changed for them, like what's an experiment and what's not. And I think that that kind of knowledge it's a really interesting kind of intimacy with someone's creative process. I think it teaches you a lot about who they are as a person. Because I think process is always just a very, very direct reflection of where people are at themselves. But yeah, it was really cool. There was an artist that I knew named Roland from Humboldt, Saskatchewan, and I still see him fairly frequently at different shows that I go to as a patron. He does a lot of selling his work, and there was one year in particular I remember seeing the use of purple on his pieces for the very first time. And I said to him, like, that's new for you. And he's like, you see me 3 times a year, and yet you know when this is new. Like, that's really an attentiveness. And I was like, well, I like your work. I like you as a person. Like, it makes sense to me to kind of pay attention. But I'm also someone who's very visually geared, right? So I may notice that, this has changed in your work before I'll notice that you're driving a new car, for example, because I don't care about cars nearly as much, which is just honesty. I have a lot of admiration for people who are like, I know what that is. The only time I ever felt really connected to vehicles was when I had to monitor makes and models when I was working at a gas station in case somebody ran off without paying. But I like being close enough to somebody to be like, hey, I can see that you're trying this new thing and I want to encourage you because that's super exciting. So, yeah. Fire Pit Cowboy Coffee? I have no idea where... Oh, I think I follow where that comment came from now. I didn't say that, Gary. But yeah, anyway, it's I can recognize basics, but I know some people get really excited about it. I'm just not one of those people. Myrna was making nibs out of pop cans the other night and posting pictures of it as she went. And I thought that that was just super cool. Like, that's a thing that wouldn't have even occurred to me. Not an engineer, not someone who thinks in that context at all. So it was like, oh yeah, you know what? That makes sense. This is a way that you would have been able to do this kind of thing had you had the desire to do so. So that was a really interesting thing to observe as well. I think one of the other reasons that it's cool is if you watch what other people are up to, especially if it's someone who's as experimental as Myrna, you can be like, oh, I like that part of this process that I've never tried before. I think I want to give that a shot. And that's a good way to kind of keep things fresh in your own practice. In some ways, I compare that to like, it's the art version of getting a musical recommendation from a friend. It's like, hey, what are you listening to right now? What are you playing with at the moment? I'm super curious about this. Got a little temple hanging out on this mountain. So maybe we'll just put a little path there to make that a bit more obvious. I really like hiding things like that on my maps. It's just cool. I want someone to be able to find one and be like, hey, was this intended to be there? And you're like, yep. Sure was. Sorry, just looked up and saw the chat. Myrna, I've been doing that this morning myself. I I keep putting things down and going like, where did I leave that? And why is it under that? Um, do I find some motions are harder than others? Yeah, honestly, like this kind of tick work where I'm barely moving my wrist and mostly just moving my fingers, that can be a thing. Am I smart enough to quit doing it? No. I am very, I don't want to use the word organic, but I get a groove going when I'm working on certain landforms in certain geographic areas where this is where I'm at. This is where my brain is. This is kind of where it needs to be right now in order to be able to figure it out. And so even if it's a little bit annoying, I will keep going in that area until it's done. Sometimes this means that I actually have to stop working for a while just to give my hands the break that they need. But I would rather full on stop working and move to a different project that maybe has a different kind of range of motion than to quit and like I couldn't start over here, for example. Like to just go down into this corner and start working would not work for me at all. Usually if I'm working, I have a tendency to work clockwise around a page. And so to kind of interrupt that process or start it at a different point along the page isn't something that I do. I have no idea why this is the case. I didn't even realize the clockwise thing until probably a couple months ago. So it would be far more likely for me to go over here than to continue down here than it would be for me to just pick up in this corner and then like work my way up or go back this way or something like that. Sometimes I will move around a map if I'm confused about a transition and what needs to happen to get from one place to another. But frequently I just go until it's done, which sounds, I don't know, a little strange now that I say it out loud. I do not have secret double fisting hand powers. That sounds really dirty. Which I guess teaches you a lot about me as opposed to language. Oh, implication, you are a funny thing. Hey, does anybody know of a good brand of sticky tack? I got some from the dollar store and it is not stick. And it's making me sad. Dave got me a really beautiful case to keep all my paints in and my supplies and everything for painting miniatures. He ordered it for me for my birthday and it just finally got here. And it came with these cool little stands that I can apparently use like sticky tack to stick my miniatures to so that I can hold the stand to paint instead of holding the base in my fingers because that gets awkward sometimes. But the sticky tack that I have does not work. Nothing sticks to it, not even paper. So I need a different solution. Scotch. Yeah, okay. Dude, the answer is infinite. It's just whether or not your eye will be able to tell the difference. Painting the sky for 6 days. I love the idea of you doing this. Are you painting in acrylic or in watercolor, Myrna? And why are you doing this? This is fascinating. Tell me more. That's a terrible pun, Gary. Watercolor, okay. So what are you building your grays out of? Oh, journal sparks. Okay, that makes sense. Are you using like lamp black or Payne's gray, or are you, mixing other things? Because like grays are not always black based grays. You can have like lavender grays and ashy pink grays and stuff like that too. I don't know if that helps you. Blue grays. Some beautiful blue grays out there. Oh, I'm sorry. Crappy paper is an unhappy thing. The student grade koi. And then the bitching about what on the internet? Did I miss something? I feel like I might have missed something. Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's the thing. Necessarily specifically on the internet, but terrible supplies are a challenge. That's a for real issue. Although I've said before, I think it's an underrated skill to be able to get anything of quality out of terrible supplies. Because if you can do that, you can make just about anything work for you. Learning curve, I think, than what I sign up for. I honestly wonder if that's partly why people who are trying to get into art don't continue. Because if they get in with terrible supplies at first, I wonder if part of that is demoralizing just because, then you don't understand that it's not you that's giving you all of these results that are so not what you wanted. In some parts, it's just the materials that you have. Because student grade stuff is cheaper, right? And most people, when they're trying new things, they're like, I don't want to put too much money into this. What if I don't like it? Which is legitimate. Totally. Especially if money is tight. But I wonder if there's some kind of relationship between those factors. Nice. You taking pictures of this guy on your phone, or are you taking pictures with your little Polaroid-y camera thing? I'm sorry, I do not remember what the name of that machine is. I'm sorry that a friend's cat is in trouble, Gary. That's the one, Instax. It's his camera now. Does he take good pictures? Because I think that'd be super cool. Well, even just does he take pictures at all? I love the idea of kids having access to their own cameras. I think that's super neat. I think my favorite representation of that is actually Lilo from Lilo and Stitch. Yeah, different times of the day is a big deal. Color sure changes a lot over the course of a day. I'm really quite enamored with, because like we've had nothing but cloud here too. Kind of that steel blue gray color that's happening right around like 6 o'clock, 6:30 here. So I'm less resentful of having to get up and take Saxon outside at that time of the morning because it gives me a little bit of time to just be like, oh, hey, quiet blue dawn, how are you? $1 per shot. Yeah, no kidding, that is expensive. Lucas? He's been shooting some really good stuff lately. I really like that I can follow him on Instagram, because then it's like, I'm still kind of connected to your process. Yay. Well, my darlings, we are at the hour mark, so I think I'm going to shut it down for today, and I am going to go make some more coffee and then hop over to the Discord. So, if anybody feels like coming over to the Discord with me, you are completely welcome. For those who aren't familiar, we've set it up as Art Jam, so if you search for that, you may be able to find it. If not, send me a message here and I can send you the link. If you're looking for me, I am Monocled Octopus on Facebook and Instagram, Twitter, but really I don't use that much. And yeah, come hang out. All right, thank you guys for hanging out with me today. It was good to see you, Gary and Myrna. And I'm gonna carry on with this map after I re-up my coffee. Catch you later.